And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Friday edition of the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I'm absolutely thrilled that you guys are here with me. Thank you for being here. Tonight on the Portal, we're going to be discussing Almost Missing, a bunch of cases of people who may have experienced the very same phenomena that is highlighted in the Missing 411 books by David Paulides. So hang on, everybody, because we're going in. So the Missing 411 has been a literary dynamo in the world of the paranormal and the unexplained. Pretty much everybody has heard either interviews of David Paulides or they've heard of the stories that are highlighted in there, or they've read the books themselves. And David Paulides does a phenomenal job. First and foremost, I'd like to say that. First and foremost, thank you to the Freaky Friday crew for handing me over the reins. Again, you're a tough act to follow, but you guys are phenomenal, and you always leave the chat room just packed. I wish I could keep it, but I do my best. It's just a tough one to follow, but the 411 books have been just amazing and very well written. David Paulides, if you're not familiar with who he is, he's a former law enforcement officer who's also a MUFON investigator and is involved in researching Bigfoot. He's just really has his hand on the pulse of a lot of different fields in the paranormal. And he came across these cases of people just disappearing. Now, people disappear all the time, but the way these people are disappearing really defies explanation. And just to paraphrase some of what he talks about people that disappear mostly in the national parks in the first ones, people that were in groups. They were all together and boom, suddenly someone's gone. And there's these huge manhunts, these huge search parties. They bring in tracking dogs. Tracking dogs refuse to track or to follow, where this person could have gone. In the cases where they do find the person, they are miles and miles away over impossible terrain, with no explanation of how they got there. Oftentimes, without articles of clothing that they would have needed to stay warm, socks that are absolutely pristine and clean, but shoes that are missing. Way back or around the area of the disappearance, just so many oddities, and it really defies explanation. And one thing about his books is that he never draws any conclusions. A lot of people have a lot of assumptions of what's happened in these cases, and of course, Bigfoot comes up an awful lot. Dogmen, UFOs as possible explanations, other possibly naturally occurring phenomena, but for all intents and purposes, these people are gone. And the ones that are recovered are sometimes they're small children, really can't articulate what they've seen and experienced. Others have been mentally challenged people that weren't able to articulate really clearly what happened to them. And there's been a few cases of people that just wouldn't talk about it. They just wouldn't discuss it. Whatever this phenomenon is, it's got all of us scratching our heads, and we're going, what's going on here? Where are these people going? Who is taking them? How did they disappear, without a trace? several really heartbreaking stories of children going missing. Sometimes it's vulnerable adults. Sometimes it's rugged outdoorsmen and hunters and people you wouldn't imagine would just disappear, but they do. And so it's always left us with this idea of what's going on. And, it's one of those things that I kind of want to have an idea of where to point this, an idea of what could be doing it, because I tell you, it just leaves you a different flavor of the great outdoors. It's like, I'd love to go camping, but I don't want to be in David Paulides' book. And not that it happens that often, but the number of times it has happened is absolutely striking. Like, it defies explanation. So, but what I've uncovered is a few accounts of people who claim they were almost taken. They experienced things they can't explain. They saw things they can't quite wrap their head around. And I now, as a caveat, disclaimer, I have not vetted any of these accounts. I have no knowledge of if they're factual or just creative writing, but the Paranormal Portal is all about having a discussion. And this is certainly a topic that has just intrigued me for many years now. And when I came across these stories, I was really excited because maybe it's a glimpse. Maybe one of these accounts is real. And if one of them is real, it's a glimpse into a side of reality that, just seems beyond what we consider possible. So we're going to get into that tonight. But, of course, the call-in lines are open, ladies and gentlemen, on the portal. This is Friday, Saturday night, so we are able to talk to you. If you want to call in, you certainly can. If you want to contribute to the discussion, I'm all ears. The number is 213-233-3998. Again, 213-233-3998 or 833-TFR-LIVE. Again, 833-TFR-LIVE. If you're calling from the UK or across the pond, then call in using 44203-393-2871. Again, 44203-393-2871. So this is an exciting show for me because I was really pumped when I found these accounts. And again, I know that so many people have been talking about these for so long. Allegedly, they've made a movie as well. I don't know if it's actually been released yet or not, but I think you would have to look up David Paulides and find his actual page to find out if that's true. If it is, I definitely want to see it. So if you find out that it's been released, let me know, because I definitely want to check it out. I've heard many of his interviews, and I find him to be an absolutely compelling man who has done just some incredible investigative work and uncovering a lot of very bizarre things. So let's get into these, ladies and gentlemen. But thank you to all of you who are here. And I see the TFR chat room is just packed. There's so many of you in there. And, oh, man, it's just really full. So we got Ken's in there, TFR Wookie, Kayak, Idolize, sorry. Gemini's in there, Joseph, Skynet, Dawn's to you too, and Psycho Dave, Tony Phillips, Jimmy Jean's in there. Hey, Jimmy. And Dumas, I don't know if that's what he was going for, but that's the way I'm going to pronounce it. Wu-Tang Man, I am me, Dorito56, Randy Don, hey Randy, Phil, Paddywhack, Heart of the Rebel, Naysay, hey Naysay, good to see you, brother. Grass Hugger, Drone just popped in, good to see you, Drone. And Kev's still in there, how you doing, Mr. Kev? And Bill 13, so thank you guys for being here and being a part of the show, and those of you in the YouTube chat, I'm going to go through this. Lady Death, Diane Swagger, Sarah, Elemental Arts, Mason Productions, California Exploring, Elemental Arts again, Kurt, Pixie, Ken's in there too. Ken's double dipping. Ian Hawks, Gentry, Coda. Let's just see if there's any more before I move on. But I just want to give you guys a shout out because it really means a lot when you guys are here. Matt Niven. Let's see. Kurt again. I think that's everybody. I hope I haven't missed anybody. I'm sure Lewis is in here somewhere. And Haxer, how you doing, Haxer? Good to see you. He was number one on the on the YouTube chat, so he was right in the door, ready to go. And if I missed you, I do apologize, but give me a shout out in the chat, and I'll make sure to mention you. So let's get into these stories, ladies and gentlemen, and see what people are reporting. But these accounts, they just rattle my brain, literally. And so the first one we're going to get into is it's from 2016. It says in July of 2016, I was on a personal retreat at a yoga center in Colorado. I live in Colorado and I'm a fairly experienced hiker and had been to this place several times over the years, so I had been on solo hikes on this land with some familiarity of the trails. The second day of the retreat, I went out in the afternoon on a solo hike, and I took my phone for taking photos, and about almost a mile into the hike on a well-marked trail, I walked maybe 5 feet off the trail. Things are falling. Awesome. God bless it. This is the Portal Studio, ladies and gentlemen. I just rehung all that stuff, but anyway, I digress. I walked about 5 feet off the trail to have a look at a brightly colored sign, which was on a tree, which gave the name of the national forest I was in. I read the sign, turned around to get back on the trail, and literally, the trail wasn't there. I found myself in a different location. How could this be possible? I thought. And then, of course, you begin to panic when things go so weird. I calmed myself and circled the area, trying to find that trail or some way to get back on track, but it wasn't there. I made sure not to wander off from the small area I was in, yet I was still searching for some way out. Retracing my steps to find the tree with the brightly colored national park sign as a way to reorientate my location, but it wasn't there either. And as I walked in the direction I came from, there was barbed wire fence all around. I then began to get what I can only describe as a really creepy feeling that I was being watched, and the panic set in. I knew I mustn't panic, and that I had to stay in the area that I was, but I felt as if there was an energy trying to get me to get out of there in a specific direction. But my gut, my intuitive self said, no, don't go, don't move. And then I thought to call 911 or my husband, who was 30 miles away. Not sure if I could get cell service, but again, my gut very strongly said, no, do not get on your phone. Then, in the distance, I began to hear voices of people talking. Oh, great, I thought, I'll call for help. And just as I just assumed that if I could hear them, then they could hear me. So I cried out for help, screaming as loud as I could. Then I began to have this terrifying feeling that the sound of my voice wasn't going anywhere. The best way, in retrospect, that I can explain this is that I felt very small, like I was in a petri dish, looked at, and the sound of my voice was being muffled. I thought to myself at this point, oh, this is how some people go missing. And that's when I knew I had to find a way out. I ran straight away from there. In front of me was a field, so I just began running in that direction of the yoga center. The grasses got taller and taller as I ran, and were taller than me in a lot of places. And it was really dry and hot in the Colorado summer, but this field was like a marsh or a bog with dips and holes. I was sinking in as if it was almost quicksand. As I was running, and at one point badly twisted my ankle, I felt like I was going in slow motion, but I was running as fast as I possibly could. Eventually, I got to the trail, just near the facility. I sat down on a chair by a small lake that is on the property and was just really feeling dazed and in a state of confusion as to what I had just experienced. Mostly, I was just incredibly thankful to be sitting there. I remember, too, my eyes burning badly, like I had been doused with some kind of chemical. For days, they were quite red and still burning. And I was not able to walk as my ankle had swelled up like a cantaloupe, but my dear husband picked me up a day earlier, and I was wearing bright pink pants, by the way. Also of curious interest, a few weeks after this, a boot with a foot in it had been found in a ski area very near where I had this experience. And in January, a worker from the same ski area had gone missing, and he has never been found. The foot was not his, however. My husband had read the David Paulides work and research on Bigfoot a few years earlier, but we weren't familiar with his work on missing people in national forests. He suggested I listen to his interviews, and I haven't stopped reading and listening to these incredible stories. So yeah, just an amazing case of somebody entering a space and suddenly everything changed. She was no longer where she thought she was, and the environment changed. It shifted. Now, does this imply a dimensional gate that she walked through, a quote-unquote portal? Is this what could be happening to these people? I've often theorized in the paranormal that perhaps our dimensions bump into each other and overlap, and we get into these strange areas of flux where the rules of physics and the reality that we understand can change. For example, people have sightings of strange creatures like pterodactyl, like dinosaur birds, in the U.S. and in other places around the globe. Now, people aren't finding dead pterodactyls, and when you look at a creature like that, so people are observing this and adamantly swear that they saw a pterodactyl or some type of very similar kind of flying lizard. Now, a pterodactyl wouldn't have an idea that it should stay hidden. It wouldn't have an idea that it shouldn't be seen by people. It's not an intelligent creature. It's not going to have that level of functioning, mentally. So they come and they're observed and then they're gone. If they were here, they would be wherever the food is, because that's what the simpler type of animals do. They don't put a lot of thought into it. Like deer, they will go where they find food. And that can mean across a highway that's, flying with cars. They don't care. There's food on the other side. That's where they're going. So there isn't a lot of high-level reasoning going on with your typical animal. It's just following its basic needs. Now, if these things were actually here all the time, they would be observed more often because it would be an airborne type of creature. Realistically, if it's that big and flies, it's not going to be an issue of being hidden by the natural resources quite as much, because, there's people in a lot of places that would qualify as good hunting areas or good feeding areas, coastal areas where I would imagine a being like this would live. But they aren't, and they aren't finding bodies. They aren't finding big nests or weird layers where they could be living. They aren't finding droppings. They aren't seeing these things. So my idea, or my hypothesis, my theory, is that they may be some kind of time variable or time flux where these things do phase into our reality periodically and then phase back out. If time is relative, and you look at the idea that all time exists at the same moment, then perhaps they do phase into our reality and then phase back out. So there may be these naturally occurring portals or gateways that open and close, and perhaps in a case like this, the woman went through one inadvertently, and when she got there, it wasn't necessarily a different time, but it was definitely a different space, and it might not have been actually very far from where she initially was, but it was enough of a shift that she didn't recognize where she was. She was unable to find anything that made sense, and was eventually able to make her way back. And could that be the case, where it's more of an anomaly like that? So we do have a call here, so let's get to the call. Hello, Diane. You're on the air.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
No, I got a family member who's terminal right now, so I'm a little distracted. But
I'm so sorry.
I had to call in on this,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm glad to see everybody in the Para family. I love you.
We love you too.
And yeah, and of course, I have a story about this. Don't I have a story about nearly everything?
You do.
I have a couple of them.
Uh-huh.
But one is particularly mine, and it there is a place like that. One of the things I noticed when I saw the Paulides videos is that same thing he noticed. All of these places, they go up to a rocky outcropping. The person turns a corner behind a rock, and then they're gone.
Yeah, boom,
right?
Just disappeared. Yeah, that's what I understand.
That is the way it goes. All of a sudden, they're just gone.
Right.
And there is a place near here called the Ledges. Boy, it'll be on the... when we do get that party bus idea going together, we'll have to go out to the Ledges, too.
Awesome.
But I know a friend and I were walking around up by the Ledges, and there is a rocky outcropping up there, too. And... It was strange. We were walking around, and we were walking in circles. There were these two trees that were directly on either side of each other and almost exactly alike. And it was almost like we kept going through the same gate and the same gate. And I'm like, finally, about the third time around, I said, okay, we're not getting to where we're going, because we were trying to meet up with our friends. I said, we're not getting to where we're going. Something is going on here.
Right.
Something is wrong.
Oh.
Because we're going in circles. I have seen these trees 3 or 4 times now. I know I have.
Oh, no.
So I had read, and we hadn't seen anybody on the trail for like an hour, at least. And I'm like, and the place should have been brimming over with people due to the fact that we had a group up there doing something, and it's like we should have met somebody.
Right.
And I'm like, this is all wrong, man.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
And so she says, well, what do we do about it? And I says, well, fortunately, now this was fortunate. I had, I guess, either read or seen something about, well, this is called being, and no offense here, Pix, this is called being pixie-led.
Oh, right.
I think we are being pixie-led, because they'll play with you. They'll just play with you.
And there are many accounts and legends of them drawing people, get lost in the forest. That's true. Very good point.
That is. Now, I can't say that is every case, or as a matter of fact, I have some other accounts that this could be entirely something else. But in our case, I was pretty sure that, that I had kind of synchronously heard about the pixie-led thing, because maybe I would need to know that on how to get it undone. Well, I think I remember that what you do is you're supposed to cross your fingers and turn in a counterclockwise circle 3 times and say, show me the right way, something like that.
Okay.
It was some little kind of ritual you do to get out of it. So as soon as I did that, we did see another path branching off from that set of trees, and I knew that set of trees was something, right? I knew it. It just, there was something about that area, and I'm like, okay, that is another path. I think that is the real path, and the one that we've been on is something else. So I think we need to go down that one. So, okay, we went, guess what? We took that path, and there's our friends.
Wow.
And they're wondering, where the heck were we? They couldn't find us. They're walking along, they're going down the path. We should have seen them 5 or 6 times, right? But we didn't see them at all.
Right.
So I'm sitting there, and I'm going, Well, guys, we were like right down there, and they're like, we didn't see you. We looked. We sent people out looking.
Wow.
I'm going, what did I tell you? I think we were pixie-led.
Right.
And
You were glamored.
yeah, that's what they called it in the old days.
Yep.
Now, what is it really? Well, maybe that really is what it is in some cases, maybe not in all.
Sure.
So watch it, Pixie. Kind of be nice, will you? No, I don't think our Galactic Pixie are going to do that.
Nah.
You better not. I'll have to spank her. Spank you,
Yeah.
Pixie. No, she'd probably like it. Anyway.
It's a family show, Dee. This is a family show.
Our strange little family. I love you all. I do.
Oh, we love you too.
But there was another person when
Now,
I
Dee,
remember talking to somebody about this
hold on
and
now.
saying
Dee?
it was the weirdest
Dee?
thing.
Dee?
Huh?
I just want to let you know we're about 30 seconds out of break. So why don't you hold that thought and stay on the line, and
Okay.
we'll open the next segment with you. Sound good?
Okay. Thank you, dear.
Oh, of course. It's great to hear from you. And, of course, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, it's great to be here.
We will, of course, be right back with more of our discussion tonight, but some great food for thought. And that's a great point. The legendary pixies or fairies or fae. Some people may roll their eyes, but there are lots of accounts of people to these days, to this very day, having witnessed some strange little folk in wooded areas, and they seem to be magical. I don't know. I love that subject. I think it's incredible, but we'll get into that and so much more when we come back, ladies and gentlemen. But we're going to go to our first break. We will be right back. And Dee, I'm going to mute you, but I'll unmute you on the other side. Okay.
Extendivite really works. No hype, no fear. We are TFR, your protection from deception.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and we are cruising into the second half hour of the show already. It's gone extraordinarily fast, as it always does. But thank you all for being here and being a part of the portal. We have this incredibly expanding and ever-growing family of listeners and people who participate. But if you have a paranormal story or encounter of your own that you'd like shared on the show, or you just would like to tell me about it, that'd be great. You can email those in if you don't want to call in. You can email paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. And we've introduced these new shorter segments of the portal on nights where we don't do a regular 2-hour scheduled show, which is Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. We do our 2-hour scheduled shows, but Wednesday is a YouTube-only show. However, on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, we've launched the new segments, which are called Bedtime Stories from Beyond, and they are just a shorter format of the portal, because not everybody has 2 hours to dedicate in one sitting or at a time to catching up with what's going on in the portal. So I made these shorter episodes to hopefully bring a whole new serving size, and maybe it's more convenient for a lot more people to be introduced to the portal. And so far, the reactions have been just amazing. Thank you all for checking them out. And you can certainly find them on our YouTube page at youtube.com/paranormalportal if you're not already on YouTube. And if you do, please subscribe and hit the notification bell, and you'll know when I go live to do another one. And all of my shows are first live, but they are available on demand on YouTube or on the TFR archives as well. If you want to check out the TFR archives and become a member, you can go to tfrlive.com/paranormalportal, and on the right-hand side of the page, you'll see how to become a member, and that supports the whole station, but it also supports the Paranormal Portal as well. So there's several options. We're trying to expand our reach, and we have a DTube channel, and Don has put together one too, and I can't remember where it is, but he's been working on that. So we're out there. Just search for Paranormal Portal and you'll find us. But right now we're doing a story about almost missing, and these are accounts of people who seem to have experienced what could be a similar phenomena to those that may have experienced them, that are highlighted in the David Paulides book. That didn't come out right at all, but the David Paulides books, the 411 missing 411 books, talk about these mysterious disappearances that nobody seems to understand what happened. These people are just gone, boom, and many are never recovered, never found, nothing. These are accounts that I found of people that believe they may have been experiencing those same phenomena, and somehow they made it out. They didn't get taken. But right now we're also joined by our longtime listener and friend of the show and contributor, Miss Diane Swiger. Welcome back, Diane.
Hi again. Yeah. Well, spending a lot of time out in the woods, there are a lot of really weird things that can happen out in the woods.
Agreed, yeah.
Well, there are weird things that can happen in the city, too. I know, but I mean, out in the woods, because people get confused. Trees look like trees. And they look like other trees, too. So a lot of them, you have to kind of look very carefully to kind of spot that you are going in a circle
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. So, but I wonder how long we would have been, if we would have just kept doing that. I wonder if we ever would have been found, or we ever would have found anybody, or if anybody ever would have seen us.
Well,
The more I think about it, the more I think, my gosh, it was a good thing I had read that or whatever. I'm not sure that is exactly what I did, but it's nice that I knew it at the time. I think I'm going to look that back up just in case it happens again.
Right.
And put it somewhere.
Well, the other
to
part
make
of it
sure
is
that
what you experienced was a spatial anomaly, but could it have also been a time anomaly? Could you have been gone, as far as everyone else was concerned, a hell of a lot longer than you thought you were?
Quite. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that can happen too. I'm quite sure of that because I have actually, there was a time that I really wanted to get somewhere. There was kind of an emergency. And I made a 6.5-hour trip in like 2.5 hours.
Wow.
In my car. And I would have had to been going like 200 miles an hour the whole way. I'm sure the police wouldn't have liked that one bit. But
Not that they could have caught you.
Yeah, and then the person, huh?
Not that they could have caught you. That's moving.
But yeah, it's like, it was weird. It's like I show up and the person is like, wait a minute, you can't be here yet.
Wow.
You won't be here for another 4 hours. And it's like,
Wow.
But see, I used to do that a lot. It was weird. I used to do that a lot. And
Really?
I never could explain it exactly because it was never any particular thing I did to cause that to happen.
Sure.
But then the other way would happen too, because sometimes there'd be a lot of missing time that we don't know, but we think maybe that was an actual abduction time period.
That could be.
Because I have some weird memories about that. I mean, I have memory. One time I watched the sunset out at the ledges. See, a lot of things happen out that way, too. Here we go. This is Ohio, right?
Yeah.
A lot of weird things happen out that way.
Yeah.
Other people have reported stuff like that, too, because I used to go to a metaphysical group out past that point, and he said, I want everybody to be careful going home because you're in a meditative. Now, this may be part of it, too. He says you're in a meditative state, and this is one thing I've noticed, that if you're in a certain state of mind, these things can happen a lot easier to you.
Sure.
Because we were doing meditations and stuff, and sure enough, on the way home from one of these places, I had just seen the sunset at the ledges. It's only maybe at most a 20-minute drive home, but I didn't show up until like 3 a.m.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that does sound like a serious missing time. But you didn't.
Yeah,
You didn't
and
notice
then there
it.
was a patch of road I would never drive down again. After that, I would feel this intense fear and not drive down that road. And anytime I got near that in a car, I would just say, please stop, let's go another way.
Wow.
I couldn't explain. I just said, I just feel very uncomfortable, and I feel like I want to run the other direction.
Right. Well.
And I couldn't really explain it. All I remember of the missing time was driving along a road and seeing a mist crossing the road, seeing a lot of mist, and light coming out of the mist, light in the mist. And beyond that, I don't remember anything except getting back on the road and driving, on the way home. I don't remember the missing segment. What happened after I saw the mist and light and I heard this weird noise, this weird like chugging noise, like a machine.
Oh. Okay.
And it was very strange. I still don't know to this day. I probably, if I got regressed or something, I could find out, but
yeah, that'd be very curious.
I haven't had that.
I
know.
I will say that the ancient Druids regarded mists as very, very special times, and they would that was during fogs and such. They would conduct, or were known to conduct, gateway rituals, and that would be basically to open
Yes.
a magical gateway to the the other world. And the rule is that you had to go in, not touch anything, not take anything, and you had to get out before the fog faded, because if you didn't, you'd be trapped there. So there is some.
You'd never get back.
Right, that would be it. That would be game over unless you could.
Well, thank you for telling me that. I may need to know that next time.
Right. Yeah. Well, make sure to don't pick anything up. So.
Don't pick anything up, and get the heck out before the fog fades. Well.
Right.
Oh wow! Then that leads to another. Another story. Like I said, that one where I've got the missing time, and then I've got the one where we used to go down to a place we called the Sacred Soccer Field.
Okay.
Which the mist would roll in there pretty much nightly, and we would go and have our meditation and ceremony, and then we would come back out. So I was used to going down there quite a lot when I lived over in that area by this park.
Okay.
Where this happened, and we called it the Sacred Soccer Field because somebody had made a soccer field out of the area. It was a nice clearing, and near the river, and I guess it was actually a really nice place, but we always knew it was a special place.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go down there quite a bit by myself, which maybe was not very bright. But that was the way I was at the time. I was, not really afraid. I mean, not really a scary person. I would do a lot of things that people would maybe think was a little weird. But,
okay.
Not afraid. I wasn't afraid.
Sure.
So, but I knew the nature spirits down there. I mean, I was very aware of them and stuff, and I figured they'd probably look after me. But one time, the mist came in very, very heavy while I was hiking way out. And and I knew between me and the parking lot was a beaver dam. And if I'd get mired in that, I may not get out.
Mm-hmm.
Because, that's a lot of water. And I mean, you could break a leg or whatever. And I thought, oh, God, help me. Because, it was so thick. It came in so fast and so thick.
Wow.
That I couldn't even see my hand in front of my face, and I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, no.
I could only feel with my feet where the path might be.
Right.
And I could only hope I was going in the right direction to get back.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going, okay, you guys, I really need some help. And I think I might even have said it out loud. I said, I need help here. I don't know where I am. And I was thinking, out on the Scottish moors, how this must have been.
Uh-huh.
When you can't even, it's so thick you can't even see. You be out there, man, you fall in a bog, you're gone.
Right.
So it was pretty scary. And I'm like, okay, I need some help. I really need some help. And I'm walking along, and my feet are trying to make sure I'm on a path.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, from somewhere up ahead, I hear bagpipes.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, bagpipes? Because dusk is falling, and I've got to get back before sun sets, or I won't be able to see anything. That's it. It's
right.
over. I will have to just sit there and stay until morning, right? Or the fog lifts, one or the other. And I'm hearing the bagpipes, and I'm like, oh, wow. And I went in the direction of the bagpipes. I said, well, if there are bagpipes, there's got to be somebody playing them.
Yeah.
That's got to be the direction of the parking lot.
Okay.
I hope. So I followed that and made sure I was heading in that general direction.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, when I come out, it had thinned enough around the parking lot that I could see that there was a guy standing there outside of his car playing the pipes.
Wow.
And I'm like, thank God, all of them. And
yeah.
and I walked up to him and I said, wow, am I ever glad to see you? I was lost out there, and I was trying to find a way back, and I was hoping that, I heard all of a sudden, I was asking for help, and all of a sudden I heard your pipes, and he said, Well, it was a funny thing. I was kind of driving in this area, and I had my bagpipes in the car, and I thought to myself, well, this would be a lovely night to practice my bagpipes, but
Wow.
it was just kind of a spur of the moment idea, and so I just came down here and started practicing. Well, I guess you can't practice bagpipes just anywhere, right?
Probably not.
Got to
No.
be somewhere you're not going to bother the neighbors.
Yeah.
So he said, yeah, I was going by, so I thought I'd just pull them out and practice a little. I said, well, gosh, if you hadn't, I might still be out there.
Yeah.
So I'm like, thank you guys, thank you, whoever arranged this.
Right. Well, that was very fortuitous.
Yeah, so anyway, that's my 2 or 3 cents there, and
I appreciate
maybe you
it.
can make some other sense of it, or some of these brilliant portal lights that we have here
Yeah.
have something to say. And once again, I want to thank you all for being here, because really you make my day.
Well,
And I am so glad you said you added these segments, because I thought I was being Mandelaed.
yeah,
I'm like, wait a minute.
no. It's just that
No, it isn't tonight, is it?
it's just that there's more portal now, not less. So that's good. I hope it's good anyway.
Good, there's more portal.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, man, you got some portal?
Yeah.
Got portal. Oh, yeah, that's the next T-shirt. Got portal.
All right, we love you, D.
Or got paranormal.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All right, take care, my lady, and thank you so much for calling in. It's always a pleasure.
Hugs.
All right,
Bye-bye.
we love you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was wonderful. It's always great to hear from you guys and hear what you guys have been through. And Diane is also a very psychic person, and she's called in on several shows to bring us a lot of information and insights. Especially when we were doing a show on ports, it was really cool. She brought in some information that I had never heard before, but it was just brilliant. So you guys have a lot of the keys to these puzzles out there. You guys have seen things, witnessed things, or the way that you experienced it is going to be unique. So every time you guys share your stories or your encounters, it always helps to add another piece to the puzzle. So thank you guys for always being a part of the portal and making it amazing, really. So anyway, we got about 9 minutes before the next one. All right, so I got 3 more stories. Yeah, I'm gonna go into this a little bit, and there was a part of an article here that I thought was really interesting, and this is I don't think this is an excerpt from what I'm already bringing you, but a gentleman says, as I looked back, I noticed that the trail I was walking on lost all sense of familiarity. Now, Dee also talked about how the woods look different and stuff, and one little tip that I found online, or that I've found through the years, came from the show Survivor Man with Les Stroud. And I thought this was brilliant, and it would have never occurred to me. But I think that in some cases, people getting lost can be because of one simple thing. And what he said on the show is, when you are out in the wilderness, he said, continually look back. He said, because when you're walking back, things look differently. And you need to observe it both ways as you're going in, because things don't look the same way on the way back out. And it may be easy to miss what you thought was a really obvious landmark, because on the other side of that landmark, it looks completely different than what you're expecting. So oftentimes we're so focused on the trails ahead that we aren't really observing all of the surroundings. And so his advice to look back, I thought, was brilliant, because then you have a mental note of the way things looked. And it can sometimes surprise you how differently things appear from the other side, from the other vantage point of looking back on it. So that way you have a bit of a mental catalog of what you're looking for. But and it's simple advice. You'd think that it's just so simple that it's so easy to overlook those kind of things. But I always thought that was good. And I wondered in some of these cases, where people are missing, even experienced people in the woods, if they're not looking back and then things do change. But many of these stories, things are changing so significantly. Like the first story that I shared with you, the sign on the tree was even gone. And then these fences appeared and this bog from, that she didn't recognize as being part of the area. And so a lot of things like that were happening that would, it's a little more than just not being familiar with what your surroundings look like from all angles. It's just her surroundings changed. And I guess that's got to be completely unnerving. And then, of course, you would panic. It would be panicky because you feel like you're being watched. And if you'll remember, she stated that she felt like she was in a dish, like a petri dish. And her eyes were burning for days after that, as if she was subjected to something. Now, could that be some kind of residue of going through a dimensional shift? That perhaps it's, affects your eyes and makes your eyes funky for a while. And that wouldn't surprise me because I imagine that, moving matter through a dimensional barrier has got to be, have some kind of significant effect. But he continued and says, I was walking and lost all sense of familiarity. There were trees I didn't see, certain plants I know for sure weren't there before. But regardless, I kept my composure and stared deeply into the woods to see what made that snapping sound. And in this one, he's talking about a sound coming from around him. And I scanned the area and didn't see any life forms. Now, that is a clip of one of the next stories that I'm going to be reading to you and sharing with you. But again, the surroundings are the key and knowing where you go. Now, one of the things that David Paulides does allude to is that his advice is to to go armed, of course, but he said to make sure, apparently there's a correlation between people wearing bright colors and disappearing. But if you're in more muted colors, generally the people that go disappearing are the most unlikely because they are in the bright orange or yellow jackets and, these real loud colors. And you would think it would be easy to see them and boom, they're gone. But there doesn't seem most of the people that disappeared were not wearing more muted colors and more low-key colors. So for some reason, those bright colors seem to trigger something. Now, I do believe that probably in the scope of his work that he covers, there's probably several different phenomena at work there. I don't think it's any one thing. I do believe that some of them could be a case of abduction. And one of the stories that he talks about, and I'm literally just paraphrasing, but was a guy that went outside of a bar, was gone. And it was in more of an urban area, but he was gone. And they looked and looked and looked, and it was like several weeks later, the guy was found. First of all, his shoes were found, but he wasn't found. And then he was found, eventually, his body was found in a pond that was searched several times, but he was floating, I think, face up on this pond, but he was dead. And from what I understand, as I'm recalling this, the coroner's report said he was only dead a couple of days, though, by his blood toxicology and tissue and all of that. He was only dead for a couple of days, but he was missing for several weeks. And his socks, additionally, didn't show that he had walked in stocking feet across a lot of terrain before reaching that pond. So somehow he was plopped up and was alive for a segment of the time that he had been disappeared. And I don't know, that's a pretty sobering thought. I mean, what was he experiencing? What did he see? What could he have been through? And who deposited him in a body of water? And that body of water was searched several times, dragging the bottom, and and then he's found floating on top of it. And his clothes, but they are wet, are not showing that they should have weeks worth of dirt and debris on them. So very, very strange. And the only thing to me that makes sense in a situation like that is an abduction situation of some kind. And that's me you throwing in my opinion, and I realize that that's just my opinion, but I can't fathom how he could step outside a bar and be gone, have massive searches going on for a long period of time and not finding him, and then finding him deposited on a body of water. That to me just doesn't make sense. So it makes you think about things like that. But this is a topic, like I said, that's just really cooked my bacon for a long time, and I want to understand. I do believe that some of them could be cryptid related, that they were taken, and there are some of the accounts that people are recovered, the little bit of information they can share. In the case of one, I think he was a very autistic boy. He said he was with a hairy man or a fuzzy person, and they weren't able to figure out if it appeared fuzzy or if it was full of hair, but that would seem to indicate more of a Sasquatch kind of thing. But who knows? The sky's the limit on any of these, and of course, as with all things paranormal, we can only speculate. But this is certainly a topic that a lot of people are really passionate about, and every time I see one of his interviews come up, I check it out because I am absolutely enthralled with the possibility and the inconsistencies. And is there a cover-up also with this? Why didn't the national parks have an ongoing registry and catalog of their missing people? And that's one of the things he points out in his investigations, is that there was no records on it, and he filed so many Freedom of Information Acts requests, and at one point they came back and said, well, for one park we can put together a list and it'll cost you like $100,000, and then for the whole national park system it'll be $1 million to compile that list for you. Very, very strange. But we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go to our hour break here, and we will return with more of The Portal.
Censorship and regulation is becoming an ever-growing problem in today's modern media, from the mainstream to YouTube and Google.
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, dripping scars across
Carol Ann is not like those she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that is different from themselves. Her life force. It is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeists are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
Years and years and years. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the second hour of the show tonight. This is our Friday edition of the Paranormal Portal, and we are absolutely thrilled to be here. Well, we as in me. Special thanks to Doc and Doc Kayak and Galactic Pixie, the two people that are docs over in the TFR chat, kind of man in the fort, and Galactic Pixie is over on the YouTube chat, man in the fort. So thank you guys for being here and for doing what you do. You're helping to organize the flow. So we are cruising along tonight and having a show about almost missing. And what we're talking about is people that were nearly abducted by extraordinary events, or they believe they were. And it seems to me to be a direct reference to kind of the similar material as in the David Paulides Missing 411 books. And is it possible that these people were experiencing those same type of phenomena, but somehow were able to get out of it before they were taken away? So we're going to get into another one of these and see what you guys think. But this is a topic that I've been absolutely fascinated by for, years. And I don't own the books, but I've caught about every interview he's ever done. And again, I would like to say that I think it's Can-Am Missing is the name of his organization, and it deals with Canadian and American missing people. And you can look them up online, but there should be a film or documentary that they put together, he and his son put together, about this topic and discussing what they've researched and the stories and some real in-depth information regarding it. So it's definitely it's allegedly out there. I don't know if it's been released yet, but it would definitely be worth checking out, because if you haven't heard, and if you're not familiar with David Paulides, check it out online. He's been on Coast to Coast. He's been on many, many shows. He has his own show online. As I think it's some kind of blog talk radio channel or something, but his own internet radio show where he discusses this kind of stuff and probably so much more. I've not checked that out, but just a extraordinarily interesting guy, and he's really done his homework. And again, he comes from a law enforcement background. He's a MUFON and Bigfoot investigator for ages, and has written materials about that. But he's, I think, best known for his work on these Missing 411 books and series that he's put out. I think his most recent one has to do with hunters, which I find absolutely extraordinary, because when you think of people that are comfortable in the woods and in these settings that shouldn't go missing, hunters are right on that top of that list. And I think specifically bow hunters, because bow hunters that's a whole different kind of hunter. When you're a hunter, you're out in the woods, but if you've got a firearm, you've got a range to work with. But bow hunters, they get down and get into it, because they got to get relatively close before they can get their shot. So they are usually very adept woodsmen. So check them out. And I can't say for sure that what we're discussing tonight is a direct correlation with that same phenomena, but it appears to be similar in a lot of cases what these people are experiencing. And we're going to get into one now that I think is pretty amazing. And let's see, which one is it? Okay. All right. Let's see. For what it's worth, I'm not an outdoorsy type of person at all. I just happened to grow up in a national forest on the edge of North Carolina, Tennessee, and I generally didn't, and really I still don't hang out much outside. But I married a guy who loves the outdoors, so I've been roped into braving the wilderness several times. Anyway, this happened about 2 years ago in the summer, shortly after July the 4th at Clingmans Dome. You guys can Google it, but it's the highest peak in the Great Smokies. And my husband and I had been hounding for everyone to go there. Myself and two sons, aged 6 and 8 at the time, and we were going to stay overnight. We were not going to stay overnight, rather. We were just going to go check out the summit and the viewing area and enjoy it, I guess. That's me paraphrasing, but sometimes these stories have a lot of fluff in them, so I got to cut to the chase. Now, for those who have never been there, the viewing deck has 2, maybe more ways to get to it. The most common way, and the way we went, was to drive in, park the car, and then take about a mile hike up to what is called the deck. It is super easy, and it's also super busy, depending on what time of the year, and it's also paved. Excuse me. We go and we get up and we take some really amazing photos and hang out for a while. Now, here is where, in hindsight, things started to get weird. My youngest child has epilepsy and has a migraine disorder and has been seizure-free for 2.5 years and headaches controlled by medication. As we're going back, he started to complain that he feels really hot and his head really hurts. On the dome, it is cold because of the high altitude, and we were all needing long sleeves, and it really felt a lot more like November rather than the middle of summer. I tell my husband, another child, that I'm going to carry him the rest of the way, and me being the out-of-shape person I am, we would meet them at the car if I got behind or had to take it slow, which I was sure I would be from carrying a 50-pound child. I didn't want to ruin their day and figured I would sit in the car with the air conditioner and my little one and give him some migraine rescue meds. And that while we rested, my husband and son could finish exploring the area. I made a joke about sending the Rangers in to find us if we didn't make it back to the car shortly after they did. Because I'm in such terrible shape, they may need to be golf carted out. Well, they went ahead, but were still in sight, maybe a few hundred feet. I'm not too sure, but at this point, maybe. It was a lull in the visitor levels, but there was no other people that I could see in front of us or coming down behind us. My little one starts crying, and he says both of his ears and his head hurt now too, and was covering his ears. At this point, the weight of him was breaking my arms, so I put him down and told him we were going to sit down and rest for a few minutes. We walked off the paved trail and sat at the edge of the tree line / grass line, and I told him to close his eyes and just relax and lay down on the cool grass beside me. We were almost to the car, and I get my phone out to text my husband that we were just taking a break, and then noticed it was completely silent because my text clicks sounded so very loud. No wind at all, not even a little breeze. It was like someone pressed pause on the entire area, and that the forest was literally holding its breath. I have no other way to describe it. My mother is a paranoid whack job about tornadoes, and she grew up in Illinois, so it's justified. But she spent years pounding into my head as a child that there is a calm before the storm. The thing that happens is calm, and then you need to take shelter because it will be a tornado touching down, despite that never ever happening in this area. So that was my first thought. I thought, oh my God, a tornado is about to happen because everything just went dead. My kid is now curled up beside me, whimpering that he's terrified. His ears hurt, make it stop, and he wants to go home. I swear to you, I felt like his little voice was the voice of God. That is how silent the place was. By now, the hair on my back of my neck is standing up, and I get this generally a sick feeling. I'm still thinking a tornado is about to begin and just suck us up, and I actually started to feel afraid to look around me. I focused on my kid and calming him down, and at this point, the area had this ominous, heavy feeling. I can't explain that one either. Almost like I was afraid to look because I wouldn't like what I would see. Like when you're a kid and you're afraid to look out under your bed at night or something because you're afraid that what you might find. I know it sounds crazy. So we had been there for about 10 minutes or so when I got myself a bit together and had a really strong, almost primal urge to get the hell down and out of there. I picked up my still crying child and literally ran the rest of the way. When we got there, my husband and other child were nowhere to be found. He had the keys, so we had to wait, and at this point, it was only our car and 2 others still in the parking area. I assume those 2 were on another less easy trail, so I let the little one sit on the hood and prepared for the wait. At this point, I was still feeling a bit of the leftover heebie-jeebies from the creepy quiet where we rested off the trail, but my child was no longer complaining about his ears or his head. A few seconds later, my oldest son comes racing down from the same trail we had just come from, with a look of sheer panic on his face, before he turns his head and starts screaming that he found Mom and his brother. He was followed by my husband not even a minute later. My other son had been visibly crying, and my husband immediately started screaming at us about where the hell have we been and if we're okay. I asked him what the hell his issue was and told him that I sent him a text saying we were resting for a little bit while off the edge of the trail. Now here's what made my blood run cold. He told me they had been looking for us for over 3 hours. I called him a liar and that it would probably just felt like hours. I said we were resting for about 10 minutes. But after checking my phone, his phone, and even the clock on the car, it turned out that we had really been gone for about 3.5 hours. Besides this, my husband and other child said they had went up and down the paved trail to the viewing deck 3 or 4 times while calling my and my son's name. This would have been impossible to miss because sound carries to an extreme level in that area. You could yell and it could be heard a mile away. I promptly turned and asked my little son if he still needed his migraine medicine, and he said the noise making his head hurt was gone and that he was fine now. My husband asked him what noise, and he said it sounded like a big bumblebee inside his head. We hauled out of there as fast as we could, all the while with my explaining every detail to my husband, who basically told me not to talk until we got home and could talk away from the children. Needless to say, we haven't been back to that area again, and my husband is no longer a fan of the woods like he used to be. And there's an edit here, and it says, I forgot to add this last part. It might be related and it might not. I feel that it is, but my husband thinks it's just a random thing. My son's migraines and seizure activity on his EEGs stopped after this. It was like his brain had been reset. I should have mentioned that, but it was an after-the-fact thing, and he had a follow-up about 1.5 to 2 months after the incident. Before this, he had a history of seizures under control and adult-level migraines as well, as constant abnormal EEGs since before his 2nd birthday. He hasn't even had a mild headache since this time. He's been deemed in remission from his neurologist because his brainwaves have remained pristine. My husband thinks I'm just drawing from coincidence on that one, but I don't feel like it is. That is incredibly a wild account. Now, this is, as Dee was explaining on her call, this is definitely a missing time. So this person experienced missing time. They felt they were only gone 10 minutes. And in fact, it was 3.5 hours. The youngest child experiencing the buzzing, having epilepsy and seizures and migraines, and suddenly he's in remission. I agree with her. I think that's an incredibly important detail, and I think to dismiss it would be to dismiss the real significant part of this story. Could that have been, I don't know, a healing event? Could it have been what happened during the missing time? What was going on? Or is it just a part of a spatial anomaly? Is that the time differential as well? That in the normal plane of reality, time is going the normal speed. It feels like it's going the normal speed in the alternate dimension, for lack of a better word. But clearly, it was going extraordinarily slower than what her husband and other son experienced. That's got to be horrifying. So were they taken and were they brought back? I don't know. That would be probably a good case for some regression hypnosis of some kind, I would think, to look into what the hell happened. If you know that you missed time somewhere, wouldn't you want to know? Or is that one of those situations where you don't look a gift horse in the mouth? Your kid's better. He's no longer having the medical problems he had, and you consider it a blessing and move on. I don't know. For me, I would want to know. I would want to know what happened in that time, because I don't know. I guess it's just my nature, but the thought of not being in control of myself is, pretty terrifying. I don't like that idea that, you could lose that control. And missing time to me is a loss of control. You've lost your cognitions of time passing. If it is an alternate reality kind of thing, and it's just a time differential, then there's nothing to recover. They would only remember those 10 minutes. But if they went off the trail, sat, heard the buzzing, and boom, they were sucked up and then pushed back down, and then the kid is healed, then I don't know. It's so many questions with this kind of anomaly and with this kind of discussion. Is that what some of the people experience? Now, the interesting thing is, I've heard several stories when we've talked about weird things in the forests that talk about a weird buzzing noise. And it sounds mechanical to what people are saying. In one instance, these two gentlemen were on a camping trip with a bunch of kids, like a Boy Scout kind of thing. They were chaperoning, but they just kind of broke away and went up on a hill after the kids went to sleep, and they heard this buzzing noise. And then they heard this undeniable, had this undeniable sensation and hearing like a stream running, and they had this strong, compelling urge to go check out this stream. Like it was just almost an altered state of awareness where they were being compelled, is the best way to state it. And they felt like they wanted to go find it. And I think basically one of them kind of broke free and said, "Hey, what are we doing? Let's get back down there." And then they went down, but then they said as soon as they broke away from what they felt they should be doing, they had this horrible feeling like something was really pissed. And to me, that sounds like almost like a form of predation in that situation. But it's that same humming, buzzing noise that maybe not the same, but it's a sound anomaly as well that's going with that. And that turned into the sound of a stream for these other people. So it's again, it's an altered awareness, but what was causing it? And I don't know. Very strange. Losing time is gaining control. You have less time to keep track of. Good point, Doc. Thanks. I just happened to look at the chat just then, Doc, so thanks. I appreciate it. And I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, if you're trying to talk to me in the chats, especially on these solo nights when Don's not here. There's a lot more for me to keep an eye on, so I I don't have an opportunity to really watch if you're trying to send me messages in there. So the best bet is to either let Pixie or Doc know that you're trying to give me a message, and they will point it out to me in some way or another. I don't know. Pixie definitely can in the YouTube chat, but I don't know. I don't have any way of getting indicators when people are mentioning me in the chat other than that. So Doc says, no worries, we love you even when you ignore us. I never ignore you guys. I love you all. I mean, I'm just absolutely tickled you all are here still with me and listening to what I have to say. That's quite an honor. And I hope you guys are enjoying this. Now, when we come back, oh gosh, there's 2 long stories. I don't know if I'll try to get them both in the last segment. I think I can. I think I can get through these last 2 in the last segment, in the last half hour. But it might require a little speed reading. But there's 2 more stories that I think are really powerful and really might address some of these weird anomalies people experience. And are these anomalies precursors to actually being sucked away? Or were these people rejected for some reason by whatever could be taken, all these missing people? Are these people being checked out and they didn't make the cut? So there's like, send them back, you know? I don't know. It makes you wonder, ladies and gentlemen, but something's going on in our forests. Now, here's the thing that I think about. It's just that we think that we are pretty in control of our world. We have this idea that we are, you know, we've got, you know, manicured lawns and paved roads, and we think we understand the woods, and that we've moved to civilization because, you know, it's easier here. And we dismiss the woods as just these places where trees and animals live, and that's it. But if you look at the maps of the world, I mean, civilizations are these cramped little dots on the map, and then you have these wide open expanses of not people or very little people. And what else is going on out there that we don't know? And when we go to the forest, we think that we're in control of it. We just, you know, we think that we are its champion. And this would go even for hunters and other woods people. I mean, we those people feel really comfortable and in charge of their experience out there. But when you think about it, there's a lot of things out there that we just don't understand. Now, I would never imply that people should be afraid of the forests and stuff. Quite the contrary. I think forests are incredibly healing and really great for recharging. But we are, as far as natural terms, we are really slow. We have really weak muscles. We are, you know, not able to move through the forest lands with any kind of grace whatsoever. We are awkward as hell. You know, it's much like, you know, people that swim and are, you know, Olympic swimmers. Well, when you're compared to something that lives in the water, like even an otter, we're slow, you know, or a seal. These things live and thrive in those areas, and they are so much more adept at survival. And what else is out there that we don't know? Now, when you think of cryptids and stuff, there's a whole catalog of things that are alleged to exist out there and very possibly do. And, you know, what are they all about? What are they doing out there? Could they possibly feed on people? Is that a possibility? There are many things. And of course, you know, most people that I've encountered, Bigfoot and Dogman and such, they don't usually get hurt. They usually get scared, but they don't usually get hurt, which means that these things are encountering these people, but they're not trying to hurt them. Because if they wanted to at any point in time, either, you know, any one of them could just, boom, in an instant end your life. I mean, it's just not even a struggle. We would definitely be the easiest prey in the forest, but for some reason they don't, whether it's because they know that if they do, that more people are going to be coming and it's going to be a lot of problems, or if they just feel like they just want our absence. They just want us to go away, so they intimidate until people leave, which is what I believe. I think that most times it's not like a missed opportunity, like, geez, I made it away. It was, they let you make it away, you know, because they are fast, they are adept, they are cunning, this is their home. This is where they live. They can move through the forest in a blink of an eye, whereas we're crashing through brush like, you know, I don't know, drunk rhinos. I don't know what to say. But, you know, there's lots of things going on out in the forests and in our wildlands that we really don't understand. And that's just in the physical. What about in the, you know, in the spatial and anomalies that we don't quite understand scientifically? Could there be portals? Could there be dimensional shifts? Could there be, is there these magical energies out there? I mean, the catalog goes on and on and on and on and on about what people are witnessing in these forest areas. And so the fact that people go missing, maybe it isn't a surprise. And maybe there are cryptids that decided that we are on the menu. I don't know. But again, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow night, Shell Dion will be on the show. And that's certainly a discussion we can get into then. But we're going to take our last break of the night, and we'll be right back for more of the Paranormal Portal. I guess that means I'm live. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back once again. This is totally live and unscripted here on this Friday night. God, it's already the 16th of November. Huh. Turkey Day is coming up here in the U.S., so I guess we got that going for us. But hope you guys are having a good Friday night, and thank you so much for being here and being a part of the show. It's always, I can't, I say it so many times, and honest to God, it's never disingenuous. It still rattles my brain to look up and see so many people paying attention and tuning in, and the numbers just keep growing, and it's just such a complete honor to be doing this and to be sharing this whole adventure of the paranormal with you guys. So I'm just flabbergasted. It's just really cool. And all right, remember, after the show, ladies and gentlemen, Nikki Colombo will be coming on next here on TFR iHeart. Tune in and TalkStream Live, and then next after that comes Jimmy Jean into the Microcosm, and I guess he's got Leo Zagami on tonight, and they're going to be discussing a whole bunch of really deep stuff in terms of the Vatican, and it should be an epic show, so you definitely don't miss that. He does a fantastic job, and I know just TFR in general, there's so many amazing shows, and I'm just floored by the caliber of hosts and shows on this channel and on this station. So many talented and wonderful people, and they just give their blood, sweat, and tears every week to bring you guys shows that you guys will love. So definitely support them. Support us all. We're all doing our best here for you. But I got a couple stories here that I want to squeeze in before the end of the show. And unfortunately, the clock, it's a time anomaly here in the portal every episode. It's like last night I did a bedtime stories from beyond, and I'm aiming for a 10-minute mark. In my mind, that's like the sweet spot. And the night before that, the last one I did before that was I was aiming for 10 minutes and ended up being like 22 minutes. Then last night I thought I was moving so much faster, and then I got done and it was 29 minutes, almost a half hour. So I'm trying to keep them, short and sweet, but once I start talking, it's just game on. It's my own time anomaly. So, all right, let's get to these stories though. Excuse me. I had a very strange experience about 12 years ago in Starved Rock State Park, which is in Illinois. It was so bizarre at the time, I never discussed it. And let's see, and let me get past the fluffy stuff. I was visiting my girlfriend in Chicago, and on a sunny and calm winter day, we decided to go for a hike at Starved Rock State Park, which is in Illinois again. And I am an avid hiker, and being on leave from Iraq, I wanted to take in some cool, fresh air. We hiked the park for several hours, and late afternoon we started heading back to the car. About a half mile from the parking lot, we came into an area where tree branches were broken and pulled towards or over the trail. Most of the branches were broken really high up, and I'd say 8 feet and more off the ground. And I'd lived in Washington State before going to Iraq, and I knew a little bit about Sasquatch areas, and so I told my girlfriend, hey, it looks like a Sasquatch area. And I explained to her about the branches being broken off and pulled over the trail. And that's about the time things started to get strange. And soon after mentioning this, I felt like someone was staring at me. It's not like if you go into a room with a lot of people and someone is focused on you, or you get an uneasy feeling and can tell you're being watched. It was like this, but so much stronger. I started to look around and see who was watching me, and it was winter, and the forest was visible hundreds of feet in all directions. And there was a group of walkers several hundred feet behind us, and no one in front of us, but I saw no one staring at me. And as we passed through the Squatch area, I began to have the feeling that someone was behind me, following us. I looked around and listened, but saw and heard nothing. There was just people 400 feet or so back behind us on the trail, and they were talking among themselves, and they weren't looking our way at all. The sense of someone being behind me was persistent, so I kept looking behind me, and I'd say at least twice a minute, but there was just the group way back. The feeling of being watched is one thing, but feeling like someone is close behind you is something else. It's way more disturbing, and I told my girlfriend to go further in front of me and let her go about 20 feet in front of me because I had a strong sensation of a nearby presence just behind us. So I turn around not more than 30 seconds since the last time I looked back, and there is this woman there. She was walking, but coming up on me fast. There was something way off about her speed. She was walking when I spotted her, but her speed was so much faster than her gait. It's as if she was on a people mover escalator like in an airport. She was coming up fast and was, I'd say, no more than 15 or 20 feet behind me when I saw her. I was rather alarmed, and I glared at her. She stopped when our eyes met, and I gave her a look of like, what the hell are you doing, coming up on me like that? We stood there staring at each other, and neither of us moved. She had her head cocked back to her left and looked at me from the corner of her eyes in a slightly alarmed, you caught me kind of look. She was completely normal looking, like a local Chicago lady, late 50s, wearing a bright red winter coat, gloves, slacks, etc. And in hindsight, there are a few other things besides her speed which really stand out to me. The first thing is that there was no sound, no footsteps, no rustling in the woods, nothing to give me any indication to turn around other than the strong sense that someone was behind me, which I'd had for a little while. At the speed she was moving, she would have had to have been running hard, but I heard no footsteps. She was not breathing hard, and her mouth was closed. Her gait was a walking gait. She was not running. However, she was moving towards me at a running speed. I mean fast. When she stopped, I'd say she was less than 20 feet from me. At the speed she was moving, in 1 or 2 seconds, she'd have been on me. The next thing that stands out is her features. She had no distinguishing features, none in her hair, skin, or clothing, no shadowing or skin hues, dimples, etc. As a former Army criminal investigator, I know to look for distinctive markings on people and on their clothing, and there weren't any. I'd estimate her height was about 5 foot 10 inches. Her clothes were of uniform coloring and indistinct. It was like she just stepped out of a department store. Her bright red coat was pristine, with a uniform hue to it. There wasn't even shading, which there should have been given the clear sky and low sun. After staring at each other for, I'd say, 5 or 10 seconds, I felt like I got my point across, so I turned around and continued walking. My girlfriend had not noticed anything and continued walking, and I took about 3 steps and realized there was no way she could have come up from that group in the 30 or so seconds since I last looked back. And there was also nowhere for her to have come from on either side. Visibility at that point was hundreds of feet all around. I say to myself, no way, and I spun back around, and she was gone. She simply vanished. I checked the group behind us, and no one had a red coat on or was looking at us, and there was no one else around, and there had been no sounds other than my own footfalls. The woman just vanished. From that point, it took us about 10 minutes to reach the car. For the remainder of the walk, it didn't feel like I was being stared at or followed. I've never been back there to that state park and have no intention of going back. The whole thing was bizarre. How was I supposed to tell anybody about that? So I never have. My mental state is fine. I have a high IQ and a 20-year career in a STEM field following Army service. At that time, I was working in DoD IT contract in Iraq. I was well rested and relaxed being on vacation with my girlfriend. There were no drugs or alcohol involved. These are absolutely prohibited in my line of work and were grounds for immediate termination. I've carried this experience around for over 12 years, being unable to talk about it because it was so exceptional and unexplainable. So, what do you make of that? What do you make of that? Is that is that extra dimensional manifestation? Is that an alien? Is that some other being that we just don't understand? I don't know. But it's stories like that that really make you wonder. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I have no idea as to the authenticity of these. These are just as I find them, that I'm bringing them to you. But it's for the discussion. It's for our conversation about these odd phenomena. And I don't know. I don't know what they are. But it sure makes you wonder, what is out there? What is really out there? How much is out there that we don't know? I think we think when we're enthusiastic about paranormal things that we have a pretty good idea about what's going on, but is that just our ego again? Is there really no measure to how much is possible? I mean, is there really that much more going on than what we're aware of? And I think there is. I think that I think reality is dynamic, and I think there are things interacting around us in our worlds that we don't even see, that we don't have the physical sense to observe. That, again, and I'll state it again, our eyes are capable of picking up a certain frequency of light waves, a certain spectrum, but light exists so much above and below that. I mean, what we can observe is actually a very small portion of the actual light spectrum. Do things exist that don't reflect the kind of light that we can see? And our ears, the same thing. There's more sound well above and well below what we are capable of hearing. There's probably things even in the spectrum that we can hear that our ears can't quite pick up. And again, for the light spectrum, there's probably plenty of hues within the spectrum that we can see, but they are just a little bit different enough that our eyes can't register them. We are very limited on our physical senses in observing our surroundings and our areas. What else exists? The next one I want to bring to you with the last remaining minutes is, let's see. All right. So I'm an armed services veteran on the East Coast. My son is 2 years old. And the event happened 1 week ago, and this was over a year ago that it was submitted. But, okay, so every now and then I like to take my son out on walks around our neighborhood in his wagon. We would typically travel to one of the nearby playgrounds, and so he can blow off some energy before his nap. And I live in a decent area that has newly developed houses and homes, and the housing development was still being expanded greatly. This particular day was beautiful, lightly clouded, somewhat hot, but with frequent cool downs due to passing clouds. And I thought that this day would be great, a perfect day to take my son out for a stroll and head over to the newly made playground that I saw on the way home one day. Excuse me. So we set off packed with a couple water bottles and some snacks just in case. And as we're doing a brief tour around the neighborhood, I noticed a state-sponsored and well-maintained trail entrance that I never noticed before while driving around. I decided, screw it, it's a pretty day and my son likes nature. He won't mind. So off we went on this very distinctive, clear trail with mile markers every 0.25 miles and yellow markers on trees every 100 feet or so you let you know that you're on the correct path. And everything was going well for the first mile and a quarter. And we were fairly deep in the woods, but certainly no more than a quarter mile from the developments at any given time. And we came across a bridge that went over a small trench and proceeded for another half mile after that. Then things slowly started to seem off. The clear yellow markers that were put on the trees started disappearing, probably due to vandalism because the nail was there, but the marker itself was completely gone. And I didn't mind that much because the path was still distinctive and deliberate and really well taken care of. But then I heard a loud snapping sound that sounded like it was roughly 50 or 75 feet back. I immediately halted the wagon and looked back to see what it was. And this is where things got really crazy. As I looked back, I noticed that the trail I was walking on lost all sense of familiarity. There were trees I didn't see, plants I know for sure weren't there before. But regardless, I kept my composure and stared deeply into the woods to see what made the snapping sound. I scanned the area and didn't see any life forms at all. But for some reason, my eyes started to fixate on a particularly unnerving dark section of the forest. For whatever reason, my entire body started locking up. Every single alarm bell in my head was pinging. No matter how hard I tried to focus on this dark patch, I couldn't see it. I had the weirdest sensation all of being able to see each individual branch and plant in high detail, but I couldn't focus on the scene overall. It was super blurry. And I also felt my internal flight or fight mechanism flipping between the two decisions faster than a coin in a coin toss. I stood for what felt like an eternity trying to figure it out, why my senses weren't working. And the instinctual part of my brain was screaming that there was something there, but I absolutely could not observe it. Whatever little light that was in this area seemed to bend around this one central point, somewhat like how a cloaking device works, and it was a minor distraction, but enough to make it strangely obvious. I then noticed how I haven't heard a peep from the forest this entire time, and I was feeling really cold, even though it was 85 plus degree weather. I couldn't shake this feeling of impending doom, probably what one feels when they are on their deathbed. I felt exceptionally vulnerable because I wasn't armed and had no way of dealing with whatever the hell this was. Eventually, I was able to snap out of the trance briefly to look down at my son and saw that his body was contorted around the seat, frozen, and staring exactly where this anomaly was, with his mouth agape and his eyes wide and dilated. This is when I knew that I wasn't hallucinating and that we needed to get the hell out of there. I took advantage of the brief moment of clarity and ran like the wind with my son in tow. I looked back only once and saw that my boy was still looking towards the area, but not frozen anymore. It took all of about a couple minutes to get past the tree line and onto the main road. For whatever reason, I broke down and started crying. My son looked at me like I was crazy, but I had never felt such absolute terror and panic over what seemed like nothing in my whole life. I hadn't felt that way at all in any point of my life up to that point. In fact, the feeling that my son and I are completely vulnerable and that I wouldn't have been able to defend either of us is absolutely terrifying. I also never had that distinct feeling of being able to see things perfectly, yet not being able to register any of it in my head. My morbid curiosity wants me to revisit the place, equipped with a firearm and a GoPro, to record any events that would arise, but I'm still trying to get over this previous experience. I've been in scary situations before, but this trumps anything I've ever experienced. That is horrendous. So is that a form of predation? You know, when you look at things that things that prey on other things, they have extraordinarily efficient ways of predating, of hunting. And could there be things that can affect us on a very physiological level? Could it affect the way our brains function? Now, there is a thing called infrasound, and many of you will be familiar with that term. And it is possible that part of the frozen feeling was due to an infrasound, which is believed to be used by Sasquatch. It's a very real scientific phenomenon that is utilized by elephants and tigers when they're defending or when they're about to attack. Tigers use it to stun their prey with an infrasound blast that just makes the prey kind of wonky. But I don't know that infrasound affects the visual, and it very well could. I'm not saying it doesn't, but what accounts for him not being able to see the point at which whatever this was, he believed it was standing. And his son as well was transfixed on this very spot, but seemingly in some kind of trance. Now, if there was something that preyed on people, I guess that would be a pretty efficient way to do it. And the reason that nature develops such things is because, the hunter doesn't want to get injured. I mean, the worst thing that can happen to any hunter is to become injured and be unable to hunt. So when you render your prey helpless, it's an easy target. It's kind of unnerving to think that we could be prey, but the reality is that we certainly can be. There, animals attack people, not all of the time, but it does happen. Generally, animals know to stay the hell away from us because we tend to bring a lot of misery in our wake. But every once in a while, some animal will get a taste for humans, and we're pretty easy. But could what this dad experienced have been, a hunter? Now, I don't know about the whole trail that wasn't there and was there. Is that just him not noticing before and now noticing? Or is that some hallucinatory thing? I don't know. It sounds like the trail is always there because he wants to go back and revisit it. But I did find that curious in the story that he never noticed it, and there it was, really well maintained and paved and marked, and then as he got further, it was not so well marked, but he saw the nail holes where the markers should have been, so something was pulling him out. So those are all foods for thought, I guess, ladies and gentlemen. But, I hope you've enjoyed the discussion. I hope you guys have, maybe found some answers. If you have, email me, paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. Let me know what you're thinking. Or leave a comment on the youtube.com/paranormalportal. And you can always watch us live there, ladies and gentlemen. You see me on camera doing the magic that it is that I do. and I'm chuckling because it's usually not that magical, but it's always interesting here on the portal. But definitely tune in tomorrow night, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a great show lined up with Shell Dion, and she's been on the show a couple of times and talked about cryptids, and she'll be doing the same tomorrow. I think we're going to have a discussion about the rake and some Sasquatch and some dogmen, and we're just going to get out of her whatever she'll give us for on the show tomorrow night. So it should be a great show. Definitely tune in and check it out. Again, it's here on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live, or you can check it out on youtube.com/paranormalportal. It'll be there. We got a lot of shows lined up. Bill in the TFR chat put a clapping meme. I don't know if it's for me or not. Oh, thank you, IME. IME says great show. Jimmy's live. Yeah. Oh, is he? He's doing a live stream now, so awesome. I love me some competition. So I got some other shows coming up that I want to mention while I'm here. So next, on the 23rd, ladies and gentlemen, Deb Varner will be returning, and she does free psychic readings to callers of the show. So definitely tune in on November 23rd. And then the 24th, we'll be joined by Dan Pruitt, who is a paranormal investigator. He'll be joining us. We're going to talk about some best practices and hopefully get some demonstrations and stuff. And it might be it's one of those shows that you could either watch it or just listen to it, and it'll be fascinating, I'm sure. But in case he does demonstrate, I'll try to find a way to post some images on our chat and TFR if that's possible. But and then Jim Mount, who is our UFO researcher and contactee, will be rejoining us on December 1st. As a side note, I just heard back from Linda Godfrey today, and we'll be putting together a return visit for her on the portal as well. And of course, I will let you guys know when that gets ironed out, when that will be. But additionally, there's a really cool thing in development as far as related to the paranormal portal, but I can't let the cat out of the bag now, but it's going to be just absolutely epic, and I'm really excited about it. We'll see what it's going to be and become, but I can definitely see I'm just really excited about it. I probably shouldn't mention much about it now because I can't really say much right now, but it's just really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to letting you guys know about it, and really going to be a great event. But as for now, stick around on TFR iHeart, tune in and TalkStream Live for Nikki Colombo, who will be coming up next on TFR iHeart, tune in and TalkStream Live. I'm not sure. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, Doc. I was a tease. It's awesome. I'd love to tell you guys what it is that is being planned and put together, but it's going to take a hell of a lot of legwork and prep and planning, and there's a lot of nebulous details that I can't get into right now. A lot of things up in the air. But Nikki Colombo will be coming up next, and then tune in later for Into the Microcosm. Jimmy Jean's going to be talking to Leo Zagami here on his show, and that should be an epic show as well. So love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
Frequency Radio is your number one
I ran out of
source for
room.
news and information without the hate.
Good night, everybody. Love you all.